Hi guys, thanks for joining. This is Essence of History, and today we're talking about the fall of Cleopatra. I'm Amanda Armagast.
And I'm Dr. Abbasi for Essence. What a juicy topic.
I know.
Cleopatra.
I don't know a lot about Cleopatra, but I've always really admired her. She's someone that I've wanted to know more about my whole life, but I guess I've just never taken the initiative to really read a book about her or anything like that. So I'm really looking forward to this podcast.
Throughout the history, even in Iran, when I was growing up, it was a fashion to have a necklace for the girl with the Cleopatra necklace.
Yeah.
One woman who lived that almost 2,000 years ago is now the fashion, has been fashion for a long time.
Oh, totally. When I was growing up,
makes no sense to me whatsoever.
No, when I was younger in the US, like the whitest of the white in Minnesota, my grandma actually bought us these like beaded things, this beaded hat that we would wear that had bangs and everything. It was all beads, Cleopatra-esque, and my sister and I would like wear it and pretend that we're these Egyptian princesses and things like that.
So who was Cleopatra?
Like I said, I don't know a lot about her, so I'm really excited to know more.
It doesn't become more gossipy and juicy than Cleopatra. Did you know he actually married his brother?
She married her brother.
Oh yeah, she married her brother. So in Persian, okay, this is what I need to say. Persian is the most gender neutral language in the world. So Persian, even 40 years after they have left Iran, we mix he and she, because like for he and she in Iran, there's only one. We say u, meaning both. Mm-hmm. And we don't say like brothers and sisters. We say
sisters and brothers.
We say khohar و برادر.
Wife and husband.
No, we don't say husband and wife.
We say wife and husband.
We say wife and husband.
But we can talk more about that.
No, but I want to say that because that's important. Because people think a woman right and so on is something new. Cleopatra. We are talking about Cleopatra. In Iran, for example, we don't say man. A woman is not the abbreviation of man, or it's the extension of man. It has a different name. And as well, wife means even head in Iran. So excuse me if I'm using he and she confuse them after being out of Iran for 40 years. So she married her brother, but the brother was 12 years old. So she was one of the last of what we call Ptolemaic Ptolemaic pharaohs.
Ptolemaic?
I think that's how it's spelled.
What does that mean?
Well, it is a dynasty. It was the last dynasty in Egypt. After that, Egypt was under rule of Roman and other people and so on, but it was the last independent, practically kingdom in Egypt. Now, what you need to note about Egypt is old.
Oh, yeah.
Now, when we do archaeology, what do we talk about? We talk about Roman and Greeks.
Yeah.
Roman did archaeology on Egypt. So 2,000 years before that, it was civilization in Nile Delta. And the reason all of that existed is the Nile Delta, which is one of the longest, if not the longest, river in the world. It comes all the way from Sudan, Ethiopia, and it becomes a delta. This delta is very fruitful because there is water, and then it floods every year. So Egypt was the breadbasket of this has importance for Cleopatra's history. I will get to that. So for a long time, Egypt was the breadbasket of the entire Roman Empire, of the entire world. That was grain, and even you read in the Bible about Egypt, the grains, and then how they hold it back, and then it was not enough, and then this, and so on and so forth. As a matter of fact, written language was developed to keep track of how much harvest they have, how much tax they have to pay, and so on. So you have this Nile Delta that is a breadbasket for civilized world, you say.
And I think can't most people track their ancestry back to Egypt and Ethiopia too? I know I have 0.6%, the tiniest percent, but when I check my
We have
ancestry,
0.6% Egyptian.
when I check my ancestry, it says that most people can trace their ancestry back to Egypt or Ethiopia.
Well, the humanity, for all we know, it's coming from East Africa, or Africa as a general, and Egypt is obviously the path for humanity to get out of Africa. So I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
So we have this long old civilization, Egypt, and they are producing more grain than anybody else and more than they can use. Lots of surrounding kingdom are depending on them on survive, eat grain. And you have these dynasties. They have been in war for a long time. And but then over the years, literally all these dynasties, this kingdom, they become weaker and weaker. So other newer kingdom start becoming stronger and stronger. Who are they? Well, for a long time it was Persian Empire. So Egypt was under rule of Persian empires until a little man from Macedonia marched over and breaks the Persian empire. Do you know who that was?
No.
Alexander the Little?
No, Alexander the Great. Come on.
So Alexander the Great now captures the weak point of the Persian Empire and literally marched from place to place to place. And one of the places that he captures is Egypt. As a matter of fact, in one of the many battles, once he practically there is no resistance anymore after that. And then there's a city we call it Alexandria, which is the name Alexander name in Arab and Persian. It's Alexandria today, Alexandria, Egypt, the original Alexandria, Egypt, not the one in Washington, in Virginia, not the one in that little one in Minnesota, the real Alexandria. And then at that point, when he's capturing all of that, he brings the Greek influence into entire area. So until then, it was the Egyptian pharaoh dynasties that were going on. What happened after that this is one of the things Alexander did. He made them mix the kingdom, local kingdom, mix with his generals. And after that, after Alexander goes there, which was about 2,300 years ago, 2,400 years ago, then the Egyptian pharaoh become Greek. They are not original North African Egyptian anymore. They are Greek dynasty. But what's important, they still follow the local tradition.
Well, that's out of character, isn't it? For when someone takes over a dynasty to still keep their traditions?
This is few successful people did that. Alexander was one of them, and that is why it was successful. Persian, when they captured the place, they didn't just went there and killed anybody thing and so on. They put the local people equal at charge and complied with the local rule. That was actually the best way to expand until the Roman came and they did it differently. But
a little cold.
Well, so 2,300 years ago, Alexander the Little goes there, take over, put his own people. They mix with local nobility, and it starts the so-called Ptolemaic dynasty. Ptolemaic dynasty. That's how I think it's called. You can look it up. Look it up. What dynasty Cleopatra belonged to? Well, the name is actually Greek.
Ptolemaic.
Yeah. So, and as you see the date there, so that has correlation with Alexander capturing that place. So these are genetically mostly Greek, but rule under local tradition of pharaohs in Egypt. What is the local tradition? The pharaoh is not a human. Pharaoh is a god. And a god doesn't mix with human. Who else can a god marry? Another god. So brothers and sisters marrying was a very common thing
Well, and
there.
also I'm sure they wanted to keep the money and the power and everything like that in the family, right?
It was more than that. It is now even not until recently, like caste system in India is even right now in like in England, the most one of the most modern land. It is frowned upon if a royalty marries a commoner
I've known
and
someone
so
who
on.
married their first cousin.
No, well, that happens all the time. That is nothing. As a matter of fact, most of our presidents were married to their cousin. No, but I'm talking about marrying sister and brothers, actually. So, and that comes from that in their local tradition, they weren't considered human. They were considered God,
Mm-hmm.
and God doesn't marry or mix with the with the local, with the commoner, with the human, and so on. So that was a tradition, and eventually the Greek Empire declines. Greek were never empire. Greek, I mean, the only time Greek were an empire is with what Alexander,
Mm-hmm.
and after he died, and he lived only 33 years old. Imagine, he captured the whole known world, and he died when he was 33 years
but
old.
what was the average lifespan back then?
Well, see, average life expand was like 35 years old. Then no, this was because lots of people would die on childhood disease and so on and so forth. Once you would survive to that age, and if you wouldn't die of a war and something, life expand was probably around 50 to 60, and people did get old eventually. But I mean, it wasn't. Nobody was planning for Alexander to die at 33.
It was a surprise and sad.
It was a huge, well, I'm not sure it's sad, but it was surprise, and it was chaos after that. So that chaos that came after that was that he didn't assign anybody to his huge, vast imperium he created. So every of his general got an area. And those generals start fighting each other. Now, in the core, where it was Iran, Iraq, today's Turkey, war. On the periphery, it was more peaceful because the people were busy to keep wars in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
So the Egyptian dynasty that he created was one of the most, I would say, least violent one. So, and everybody needed them because they produce grain, they produce food.
And at the time, weren't they doing like medicine and stuff too?
Oh, they were doing a lot of things. You see, once you have capital in this sense is they were producing grain. Everybody wants grain. Once you do that, there is capital. Once there is capital, there is technology, there's science, there is disposable money to do all the other things. So Alexandria was not by chance, was the biggest
like a booming city.
Astronomy center, mathematics center, science center, and so on. There's a really nice book and history and movie you should watch about the first known woman mathematician who got killed in Alexandria.
What's her name?
I forgot her name, but she got killed by Christian, but that's irrelevant to our story today.
What's the book called?
There's a movie called Agora. Yeah, here it is. You found it. Hypatia of Alexandria. So
and the book and movie are called Agora?
The movie called Agora, yeah. So, well, let's talk about socioeconomic and political situation in Cleopatra's time. So, they are allowed only to marry each other, right? And Cleopatra and the brother are people who are left, they are married to each other, and they are ruling Egypt as one force. Cleopatra is older, she's about 18, 19, and the little grunt brother is like 12-year-old, little fat brother, dwarf, and so on, and has all these fits and so on and so forth. And she's
the youngest sibling too, right?
He's the youngest.
Yeah, and they're always
Yeah.
Not my youngest brother.
So imagine you had to marry your youngest, poorly behaved. You would kill him,
Oh
wouldn't you?
my God. No,
Yeah.
I would not kill him because I'd be running the show. I'd be like, you go sit down, leave me alone. I'm running this show myself.
And that's exactly what was happening.
Yeah.
That was exactly what was happening. So even though officially by rule of their common law and so on, they are ruling together, but the boy is just
Go eat some chocolates and
they didn't have chocolate, but yeah, something similar. So, and guess around what time all of this is happening?
I'm so bad at history. I don't know the time that Jesus was alive.
That is actually very close to the time of the Jesus, or what we call, this Christian movement and so on there. Do you know what was special about the time that the Christian movement was in that time period?
So
If
much
you're
was
interested,
special.
no, well, it's something very special. If you're interested, please read the book by Reza Aslan called The Zealot. The Zealot. The Jesus of Nazareth.
Z-E-L-O-T.
The Zealot, yeah, the Jesus of Nazareth. The most historically accurate book about the Jesus and the time frame around that. So in that time, or 70 BC, there were these Jewish nationalist zealots who would go and preach against the rule of Roman, because you remember the Ptolemaic, the dynasty was created by Greece, by Greeks, and after Alexander, they went down. Then there were local dynasties, but then Rome became stronger and stronger and stronger. Practically, Rome captured everything that was Greek and make most of the Greek, make them to slaves. That is very important. Why? When you go to college here in the United States, you go to liberal art college, right? Liberal art college. Have you ever asked yourself why they are called liberal art?
They're not. I don't think all degrees are liberal arts.
No, but there is a degree of
Yeah,
liberal art.
arts. Yeah.
Yeah. Many college are liberal art college. So what are liberal art college? What are they like?
I would say I've always felt like liberal arts were just kind of like
They're not
more
technical.
modern.
They are not technical. They are not science per se. They're like social science, philosophy,
Which is
art,
still science.
history, whatever. They're not handyman. They are not electric, plumbing, and
right.
so on. They're not
modern. I feel like it's a lot of modern ideals in liberal college too.
No, well, let me tell you the history of that, okay? It's all interconnected. Bear with me. So, the Greek are falling apart. There are no central thing, but Rome is getting stronger and stronger. Rome is going and capturing one city after another, one Greek area after another, and enslaving most of them. So what did Roman have? Army. What did Greek have? Greek have science, mathematics, technology, and so on and so forth. So they enslaved them. So all the real handyman and sciencey thing was done in Roman Empire by Greeks. So the free Romans, they wouldn't go and do smith work and build knives and swords. They would go talk about poetry and literature, and science was for slaves. So that it was the art of the free man,
Liberation,
liberal art. So that is literally, this is the college for free man, whereas how to do plumbing, how to do dentistry, how to do things, it was a handiwork of the Greeks who were all slaves.
Technical stuff.
Yeah. So, we are getting close to time that Roman are expanding and expanding and expanding, and eventually they fight Persian Empire and take over all the today's Palestine, Lebanon, Syria, and all those areas. And then, at first, they make some kind of treaties and so on with Egypt, but then at the end of the day, they pretend that they are working together, but at the end, they go over there and take ownership of everything. How do they do that? And who is the person who's doing that? Not the second most important person in the history of the politics in that region, Julius Caesar. So Julius Caesar, after he captures, there are multiple revolt by the zealots in Jewish population.
In what country? What area?
In what is today Palestine. And as a matter of fact, the zealots, they are exactly that. They go around and kill people and destroy everything because they want to return to root of Jewish life. They don't want to be on the yoke of Romans anymore. And Roman generally tolerate, as long as people are under the rules and follow the rules and so on, and they pay tax, they usually tolerate that. But once certain threshold is achieved, they go in and they destroy everything.
So they tolerate, kind of, when you say tolerate that, you mean they tolerate people who are different?
To a certain degree, until
they break the rules.
No, until they start revolting against their hegemony and their rule of Roman. That happened 70 years before what we call year zero. 70 years before 70 BC, it was this huge uprising, and then Roman go in and kill everybody. They destroy the temple. Nothing is left anymore. And then they put lots of garrison there.
What are garrisons?
These Roman army groups and so on. And that is just next to Egypt. So Egyptians are scared. Cleopatra is scared because Roman can fight. There's not much else Roman can do except fighting and stealing. That's what they can do.
What?
Well,
I was going to say, because they didn't care about science, math, anything
liberal art. You remember liberal art?
Obviously, if you don't know anything, you're just going to be a brute.
So, okay, now I can tell a lot about that. So, the Roman now are next to Egypt, and Cleopatra and the grunt of a brother, little sassy brother.
His fingers are still sticky from the dates.
Well, whatever,
dates and cat fur.
Honey, yeah, exactly. So, and Cleopatra is a state woman. She's running the show. Well, I wouldn't go.
She's a smart lady.
Well, she's definitely smart, absolutely smart. I give you that. Okay, so she's running the show. Okay, even though.
Was Cleopatra, I just remember this, was she kind of a master manipulator?
Oh, this coming.
Okay.
It's getting juicier and juicier.
Good.
Okay, so you have to listen to the entire history, how everything came to be, that how this dynasty become Greek dynasty, why it was powerful, the grain and so on, why the Roman army was on that region. That was this Jewish rebellion and so on and so forth. But there's imagine USA has huge amount of soldiers just next to your country, and you're sort of friendly but not quiet. In that moment, and then you have to know the history of Julius Caesar. He goes and literally in the Gothic area in today's France and so on, with the Goths and all those tribes, he goes and kill 1/3 of them, enslave other third, and then make the other third citizen. And then he goes to Romania. He kills everybody. Nobody's survived there because he want to give the land to his soldier, because in the other war, he promised his people, his soldiers, land. So that's why Romania is called Romania.
Mm-hmm.
Has nothing to do with Rome, because local population was not decimated. Decimated means you kill 1/10 of them. They were annihilated.
Mm-hmm.
And then now he's strong. He come back to Rome. There is a river called Rubicon. Until then, there were 2 generals by Rome assigned. And these generals, they were for time. In time of peace, everybody went and did farming. In the time of war, these 2 generals, each of them had the army too, so they cannot do a coup.
Mm-hmm.
and there was a river. No Roman army should have crossed Rubicon. That's
The rules.
they were the rules. Actually, it's a saying now. Somebody crossed the Rubicon, meaning they started something bad that is not reversible. So for the first time, he come and cross the river, but he comes with the intention of peace to Rome. He did the typical thing. He did some riots in Rome, and then he came under the thing that, oh, I'm bringing peace in and so on. And then there are intrigues after intrigues and so on and so forth. I'm not going to go, that's a different podcast. But he's politically in Rome, he's weak. All he has is his conquest from Europe. And now, because of these intrigues and so on, he needs he need to give people, he need to appease people. Because senators are against him.
Yeah, now he has to.
And he needs food, he needs bread for Roman to give them, so they're quiet and they help him against the senators, because senators, they say, you destroyed our way of life, you destroy our, not a democracy, but it was never democracy. But
are the senators the people in movies that a lot of times have like a red mohawk?
No, those are the Roman army thing. They had like a something. The senator, the Roman senators, actually they dressed like Greeks because they were smart and so on. They were mostly aristocrats and so on. But so he's militarily strong but politically weak. So what does he need? He need to be a populist. Don't we know all about that?
I was literally just smirking.
So what does he need? What does he can? It is not 2025. It is about 1020 BC or something around that. What can he give the Roman to satisfy them? Games and bread. Literally, games and bread. Same thing, like, every time in South America, a dictator was on thing, they went to football and they made a soccer thing and so on. Games or war, war, and...
Which the games are pretty brutal anyway.
Yeah,
people are still dying, right?
Well, most of them, yes. Now, that's another story as well, about that. It's not this gladiatorial thing. They weren't all about killing, because if they were, every time they would be killed, there would be nobody else to fight. It was about showmanship, but yes, people did die, but not as often as people think that every time people died. No, it's another story.
Just sometimes.
Julius Caesar now to have to appease to local population. Roman. Again, so they are behind him against the senators. He need to give them bread. And where is bread?
Egypt.
In Egypt. So he has already his garrison and so on. Its time is good. He marches to Egypt. And he doesn't march to fight Egypt, but he marches to assert his dominance over Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
Same way like United States, put our troops in Saudi Arabia everywhere to assert something that, we are your friend, but by the way, we can destroy you at any time, so you know that, right?
Yeah.
So this is what's going on. So, and Cleopatra is there, and the little grand brother thinks he's strong.
Yeah, because now he's like he's probably at this time, what, 15?
Yeah, about 14, 15. And you think you want to have a war, say, go sit back there. You think you are going to fight the Roman army and so on? So Julius Caesar comes to the Pharaoh's place and so on, and practically it's all deserted. Nobody's there because everybody's scared and has escaped. Now, but he's coming with the message of peace. And once, and Cleopatra is trying to, practically say, hey, listen, just don't start a fight, whatever you want. I'm not, but she goes a little even beyond that. Now, the little grunt of the brother is actually has as well his own, group of people. He sort of in a semi-fight situation as literally,
like going behind Cleopatra's back?
yes, in a way, and so on, that like doesn't let the Cleopatra do what they need to do,
Well,
what
because
she needs to do.
he's turning into a man. He's turning from a boy to a man. So
He thinks so. He thinks so.
He has all this false confidence.
Yeah, false confidence that it easily can destroy them. Now, Cleopatra need to go and talk to Caesar, say, well, you know what? I'm not fighting you. More than that. Hey, I want to actually marry you because, okay, she's a god, but Caesar, by the nature that,
because of his position
and so on, is also the god. So the story is that they actually rolled Cleopatra in a carpet. They smuggle her out of, and so imagine Cleopatra put all the makeup, and by the way, all the makeup you think of and so on, it comes from Egyptian, okay? Everything you put on, they invented it, the jewelry and so on. So he put the whole thing on, then get rolled in a carpet, and the slaves carry her out of the palace under the disguise, and they bring her to Julius Caesar. They open it up, and she comes with a full show. Now, what you need to know, Cleopatra is well documented that she's not the most beautiful woman, but she's the most
sought after.
Well, she's the most flirtatious, or she knows how to behave and so on. She knows how to make herself in a scale of 0 to 10 to 20. Even if she's not beautiful.
She's not beautiful in physicality, but she radiates beauty from inside.
Yes, that is what you can say, that it's said that she captures Julius Caesar attention right away.
Of course.
And I cannot say if it is love, it is the politics and so on, whatever it is. She knows how to manipulate Julius Caesar. So instead of a fight, you become our ruler with me. Instead of my grandbrother, let us rule Egypt.
She's like, let's kick this guy out.
And it's important. If we have power over Egypt, we have power over bread. With power over bread, Rome is nothing. Mm-hmm. You have the actual power, economical power. By the way, you have as well the army and so on. And it is said that actually they have intercourse, and Cleopatra gives birth to little Caesar, a son of Caesar. Nobody really knows if it was really son of Caesar, or maybe they had sex and she didn't get pregnant and she got one of the better looking slaves in, say, put a baby there, because I want to say the baby is from Julius Caesar. Nobody knows the details, but we know that she had claimed that was Julius Caesar's son, which come back and haunt her later. So, where are we? Julius Caesar.
She just came out of the rug.
She just came out of the rug. They go on a trip. They have the most lavish, party.
Where did they go on their trip?
They go actually, that was the place, most civilized place in the world. They go to other city and so on and so forth. So, and they have the most lavish party, and it is like they weren't paparazzi there, but if they were, that was the place to be.
Okay? They probably did have. I bet there were like reporters and stuff at the time.
Oh,
because there was gossip.
Well, the gossip was just okay. Wherever they went, like thousands of people had to carry their stuff.
Yeah.
So those 1,000 people went back and just talked, and that's how we know about everything. Okay.
Exactly.
So lots of gossip.
So don't stop gossiping. That's how we know history.
At least 2,000
and now
years ago.
And now.
So okay, Julius Caesar is having a really good time. He's really thinking about, that is the woman can equal me. Okay, but problem is growing back home, because you remember, senators don't like Julius Caesar, so he has to go back. He has to go back and fight his own political enemies and so on. And guess what happens? He gets killed. Okay, he really did. He did too much. Uh, I would say he became too uncomfortable for them, and then we know what happened. Then it's a chaos, right?
Typical, yeah.
It's a chaos, and there is this one of his most important general of Julius Caesar was Mark Antony. Should we break it in two sessions, or should we
No, I
continue?
just had to check.
Okay, so Mark Antony, the right hand of Caesar, the one of the most important general, want to avenge Julius Caesar. There's another person, a nephew of Caesar, who later become Emperor Augustus, who as well wanna avenge Julius Caesar. So these two people, and that's important now. These two people who did not
Augustus
like
and
him.
Mark Antony.
Well, he wasn't called Augustus then. Okay, the nephew was not called. I forgot what he was called then.
We
but
can call him Augustus just so that everyone
yeah.
knows what we're talking
So,
about.
well, the future Augustus and Mark Antony, they combined their forces. They put the senators down and they killed, like, most of the people who killed Julius Caesar and so on. And there's it's beautiful history there. And then, guess what? These two are in power. Future Augustus and Mark Antony, they're equally powered. Mark Antony make a bad calculation. He thinks, okay, if I go to today's Palestine, I have lots of army there, because then they push the army out of Rome again. I have the army, I have the bread, I have the grains in Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
If I move out there, I'm stronger than future Augustus. Because, okay, his Augustus is in Rome. Rome without army and grain is really not a center of power. There's no power there. So, but if I go there, I have the chokehold on Rome and have the army, and I'm actually the actual ruler. And he does it. Long story, but he agrees to go and run at first maybe put down a rebellion, but then stays in Egypt. And guess who seduces Mark Antony?
I already know, Cleopatra, my girl.
Yeah. So and Mark
and he
Antony
goes for it.
Mark Antony is loving it. I mean, he has never seen he had never seen anything like that before. There are parties after parties. It's just drunkenness, and he's treated like a god, and like you're a god. Like, literally when you pee
with the gods.
When you pee, like 5 people are catching your pee while you're walking and so on. I mean, crazy thing, like no reality show can do justice to this. Okay. And Mark Antony is actually loving it. I mean, he's living the high life, while Augustus is building alliance after alliance and garrison after garrison, work his way in the political way up. So once future Augustus become too powerful, Mark Antony wakes up and say, listen, it's just not working politically. I'm losing. I'm having a good time. And Cleopatra is awesome. He knows how to party and so on. But I'm losing political power. So I'm going to show Augustus, the future Augustus, I want my power. I want to go back. I want to have a bigger seat on the thing and so on. So I'm going to tell them how powerful I am. And he cuts off the grain delivery to Rome. Yeah.
What a jerk.
Well, didn't go well for him.
Maybe he should have kept his power.
No, he relied too much that because he's a general close to all those other army people, that they would go with him. Whereas he was partying, and those garrison and so on, they were suffering, they were working their ass off, and then, and so they didn't really see him. They didn't
respect him
anymore. Correct. So, and those, they little by little, they all go to Augustus, future Augustus. So by the time it is really confrontation between Augustus and Mark Antony, Mark Antony is not that as strong as he thinks he is. Okay.
Well, I don't know if he fights himself, but he's probably pretty rusty now. Like all this partying.
Meanwhile, what happened to the grand brother? Nobody knows. Nobody cares.
Really?
Nobody knows.
Really? No one really knows?
Nobody knows and nobody cares. Yes.
They
probably got killed or
dumped in
it.
Offed him.
Yeah. So nobody, I mean, that is what's happening in the history. If nobody really talk about you anymore, you are gone.
Yeah, you died. He probably passed away.
Or God may pass away or something. Who nobody knows.
Assisted.
But Cleopatra is not going to put up with that shit, right?
She's a crazy girl.
Yeah. Now, Cleopatra, even through all this party and so on, is still savvy. She's still running the show. Okay? But Mark Antony is far lost, So by the time Augustus and his armies and so on are at the gate to Egypt for the final battle, they lose one battle after another. But then by the time they're back at the door of the palace, there are little resourceful Cleopatra says it seems that everything is lost. He says to Mark Antony, you know what? We are gods. We are not going to submit to Julius, to future Augustus. I have to find out Claudius. It was Claudius before he became Augustus. We are not going to submit him. Let us die together as gods. Yeah, Octavius.
Wait, I thought. Okay, we can talk about it later.
Yeah, Octavius. His name is Octavius. So, let us die like gods. So here's the poison. Mark Antony picks up and drinks.
And Cleo's like, I am going to date this guy now.
Wait a little. Wait a little. Bye-bye, Mark Antony. It was good as long as it was good.
We had a great run.
Okay. And he goes, and the same fashion, she goes to try to seduce the next one. Augustus. Well, Augustus is way too savvy to fall for it. I don't know. Maybe Cleopatra was 10 years older, 15 years older.
Or maybe he saw what happened to the last two people in his own position. They're both dead now.
So either way, and there is a problem here, though, right? Augustus is the nephew of Julius Caesar. But Cleopatra has a son.
The son is still somewhere.
Okay, who has more claim to the throne? The son. So you see, that thing that Cleopatra was trying to push the political environment in her favor actually backfired. So,
why?
Do you think Augustus is going to let a son of Julius Caesar live and have a claim to the throne?
No way.
But that is what Cleopatra is fighting for. He's fighting for, okay, we have no claim and so on and so forth on the thing. You have it all and so on. Just let me and my son live. That's all I'm asking for. Obviously, Augustus is savvy, very savvy. He says, yeah, absolutely. Come with me to Rome with your son. And so on. I'm not going to go into details of that, but she figures out she's going to go there in a cage. The son going to be killed. She's going to go there to the cage as an example of what happens if you defy Rome. Nobody hears from the son anymore, and there are lots of stories that he was smuggled out and so on. There are stories that he was killed and so on. But when he goes to the palace, he noticed that there is really nothing left there, and she will be just that's going to be a charade of putting her in a cage, and then taking him to the Rome. At best, being prisoner forever. At worst, publicly, executed and so on and so forth. So, and she goes, and the story is that have some poisonous snake biting her breast. That's why you see that thing that, in some pictures and so on, that there are poison, that there's a snake and the Cleopatra looking like that with one breast out. and so on. And she practically killed herself by a poisonous snake. So, and that is the end of Ptolemaic dynasties in Egypt, with the Cleopatra at last. And I think the her savviness in the whole thing.
Totally savvy.
He's like probably at that point 25.
She
is 15 years older than Augustus, trying to seduce even Augustus, the next one. Moving that he says, Mark Antony, let's die like gods. And then after he drinks the poison.
I love her for that.
Is that what you would do?
No, I don't know what I would do in that position.
Don't say it openly, because if you say it,
I just said I don't know what I would do. But I have a couple questions.
Yeah.
Julius Caesar, July.
Okay.
Right? That's July gets the name from Julius Caesar, correct?
Yes.
Augustus, if his original name is Octavian's.
No. Okay.
Which month is named after him? Okay. Both?
No. So, this Gaius Julius Caesar Octavius is not the Julius Caesar we know. This is the nephew of Caesar.
That.
Now, and Roman month, like everything Roman was messed up. Like Roman numerals. Try to do arithmetic Roman numerals.
No, I hate those.
But Roman months, there were 10 months. And then they didn't know what to do with the rest of it. Like October means, what month is October?
I know, it's 10, but it means 8.
It means 8.
Yeah.
Or September, Sept.
I know, but it's 9. Yeah, I know.
It's 7, but it's 9.
We've talked about that before.
But now, so they had to add 2 more months. They added actually in a way that now we have our 12 months. And then the actual July was named after Julius Caesar for 31 days. And then after July comes August, which is as well 31 days, because Emperor Augustus didn't want to have less days than. But otherwise, you see that there January, February, March, April. That's how we learned that 31 day, not 31 day, 31 day, not 31 day. But all of a sudden, July and August are both.
That's why you start back.
Yeah, but that is how the mnemonic. But they didn't really been thinking about that. They just made that. So. But this what you see there, Gaius Julius Caesar Octavius is the nephew of Julius Caesar, the historical figure that we all know, and it is the few at that time. Augustus, he was called Augustus later on. His name was Octavius, and then obviously became the emperor. And he has his own story that is really out of this world as well.
Sorry, but to simplify my question, July is named after Julius Caesar.
Correct.
August is named after Augustus.
Augustus, correct. Okay. Yeah. Correct.
Thank you.
They used to be called different, but then they changed that to those things after Roman months and so on. So, and then Egypt falls apart, because then they're just the province of Rome. And they're just then still very strong, because still produces grain, and that's what it's all about. It is like what we do today with oil in lots of other countries. If there are oil there, all of a sudden we send our whole army to defend Kuwait. But if there is not oil there, like Somalia or Rwanda, then they can kill 1 million people and we don't care anymore. So, and that was the actual power of the Cleopatra, to control where the breadbasket of that time was. Lots of intrigues, lots of parts of the history that they come together to make that juicy.
Very juicy.
Now, I wanted to be really, if anything, in one of those parties just to observe.
I feel like I probably was. Thank you guys for watching. This is Essence of History, and we talked about the fall of Cleopatra. I'm Amanda Armagost.
And I'm Dr. Abbasi for Essence.